We are already in December, and we're going to start a new series this month. How many of y'all just enjoy that holiday classic, How the Grinch Stole Christmas by Dr. Seuss? I'm telling y'all, that was one of our favorites growing up. It was required viewing every year, and it's not like today's time, right, where you can just on demand watch it digitally anytime you want to. It came on one time every year, right, during the Christmas season. If you missed it, you missed it. You had to wait till next December to watch it again. So we made sure to have the TV guide out to know what night it was coming on, what time it was coming on, so that we wouldn't miss The Grinch, we wouldn't miss Frosty, all those kind of holiday classics that we just grew up watching and loving. But as you know from the story that every Who down in Whoville liked Christmas a lot. But the Grinch, who lived just north of Whoville, did not. Why, you ask? Perhaps, said Dr. Seuss, it could be that his head wasn't screwed on quite right. It could be, perhaps, that his shoes were too tight. But I think the most likely reason of all may have been that his heart was two sizes too small. Now, the story, of course, is really about how the Grinch wasn't able to steal Christmas, right? Even though he tried his best he took everything. He took everything from the Who's down in Whoville. He took their decorations. He took their trees. He even took their presents and the food from their refrigerators. But much to his surprise, when they woke up, all the Who's in that village on Christmas morning, what'd they do? They joined hands around what used to be the Christmas tree. And they continued just to sing together those songs of Christmas. It didn't matter that the gifts were gone, that the food was missing, that the decorations had been stolen. And high on his mountain fortress, it puzzled the Grinch to no end to realize despite all his work, all of his evil intent, he hadn't stolen Christmas at all. Dr. Seuss writes, with his Grinch feet ice cold in the snow, he thought, how could it be so? It came without ribbons, it came without tags, it came without packages, boxes, or bags. And he puzzled for 3 hours till his puzzler was sore. Then the Grinch thought of something he hadn't before. Maybe Christmas, he thought, doesn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas perhaps means a little bit more. That's what this series is actually going to be about for the next 4 weeks. It is the most wonderful time of the year. I don't know about y'all, but we've had Christmas music playing at my house since November the 1st. All right? And that's the song we always start in the morning. And our little guy, Judah, he goes crazy when I turn that on. The first thing, he comes downstairs, he hugs me, I turn on, it's the most wonderful time of the year, and he just gets the biggest smile on his face. Because it is. This is a time for friends and family and just time together, time even to rest. But do we get a lot of rest during the Christmas season? No, we don't. We don't. Christmas is supposed to be full of good cheer and pleasant memories, but with all of the stressors and demands of the season, there are plenty of Grinches that are ready to steal our Christmas joy, to just take away what it's really about. In this series, that's what we're going to look at, some of the most common things that can steal our joy during the holidays. And today we're going to begin with a big one, because it's a Grinch that we battle all year, but especially this time of the year at Christmas time. Today we're going to talk about the materialism that stole Christmas. How many of you will admit that that's a battle in your life, materialism? I'll go ahead and admit it, right? It's the culture that we live in. Every year, millions of us feel unparalleled pressure to spend, don't we? We feel the pressure to spend, and here's the kicker, to spend money that we don't have, right? A type of pressure that only the Christmas season seems to be able to bring about. You need these decorations. We've got perfectly good but no, these are the new ones that you need. You need these. You need this food. You need these events. If you want the perfect Christmas, you have to do this. You have to go there. Our culture, advertisers, retailers, and especially now social media pressure us into thinking if you love someone, you need to show them how much you love them by spending lots of money on them, by buying lots of stuff. Isn't that's what they've convinced us of. If you really love somebody, you got to show them by spending a lot of money. And so we spend, and spend. $950 billion in the U.S. last year. That blew me away. $950 billion. This year, guess what? Projected that we're going to spend $989 billion. Almost $1 trillion on Christmas. On average, people are going to spend around $1,000. Some of us were thinking, well, I'll spend a lot more than that. Some of us hopefully are thinking, well, I'll spend less than that. On average, about $1,000, with 1/3 of us relying on credit cards and going into debt to pay for it. I love what one writer said. He said, we are essentially guilt-tripped into debt so that we can have the perfect Christmas. Isn't that? That's the way our culture operates. I also read this week that people in the U.S. waste about $13 billion every year in giving unwanted gifts to each other. Ever been there? Well, you ask, why are we still buying presents for each other? We don't want anything, we don't need anything, but we still feel that pressure to purchase those gifts. $13 billion in unwanted gifts for each other. We spend a lot of time, effort, money giving our loved one things they don't really want or even need. But we fall for it every year, don't we? We're suckers. We fall for it every year. This illusion sold to us by this materialistic, consumer-driven culture that we live in. Now, I want you to hear me. I'm not trying to be negative. I'm not trying to say, oh, we shouldn't do Christmas or give gifts. That's not what I'm saying at all. This is a wonderful time to give and create traditions and memories, and it's just a special time of the year. But we can't get so caught up in what we're doing that we miss the true meaning behind it. While it may be satisfying for the moment, we do get a thrill. We get a rush of dopamine, short-term bursts of happiness and pleasure. Here's a question for us. Why do we always want more? Even when we have so much, why do we always want more? Why do we always need to consume more? What kind of void, what kind of maybe space in our heart and our lives are we trying to fill by just always needing more and wanting more? What is it that we're searching for? The truth is that our desire for more, we're going to see today, is a symptom of a deeper need. We're going to see today that materialism is first and foremost a matter of the heart. And I want us to start by defining materialism this morning. And here's what we're going to do. You're going to think that these definitions are coming from a Bible dictionary, but they're not. This is coming from the Oxford Dictionary and the Cambridge Dictionary. So don't think, oh, he's just using a Bible dictionary. No, this is what materialism means. We'll start with the Oxford. A tendency to consider material possessions and physical comfort as more important than spiritual values. That's Oxford. Here's Cambridge. The belief that having money and possessions is the most important thing in life. I hope we can see that materialism actually begins with our beliefs. Not what we say we believe, but the philosophy of life by which we actually live. Right? Not what we say with our mouth, but what do our actions show? So even though we may say, no, my spiritual values are more important. I put Christ and his kingdom and spiritual values are most important. What do our actions show? What does our spending show? Do we see how dangerous this is? Isn't it good, usually once or twice a year, just to be reminded about how dangerous materialism can be in our lives? So let's look this morning at what materialism does to us, and then we're going to look at how we can break free from the grip of materialism. What does it actually do to us? What does materialism do to us? And I'm going to share some amazing observations from a Christian author. His name's Randy Alcorn. And if you want to know about money and possessions and how we should live as followers of Christ, you can pick up any book by Randy Alcorn. He is the top writer and voice on this issue. So I want to share some great observations from his book, Money, Possessions, and Eternity by Randy Alcorn. Here's the first thing that materialism does to us. It prevents or destroys our spiritual life. Now, Jesus was pretty upfront with us, right? He said, we can't serve two masters. I can. I can. No, Jesus said, you can't do it. It's impossible. You're either love the one, hate the other, serve one, despise the other. You can't do it. You can't serve two masters. Listen to Jesus' words, strong words to the church in Laodicea in Revelation 3, verses 17 and 18. He says, you say, I am rich. I'm rich. I have acquired wealth and do not need a thing. Look at how well I have done in this life. I am financially secure. I am financially independent. I don't need a thing. But you do not realize that you are wretched, pitiful, poor, blind, and naked. I counsel you, I beg you, I plead with you to buy from me gold refined in the fire so that you can become rich. Now, wait a minute, they already said they were rich. No, he's not talking about monetary, he's talking about spiritually rich. And white clothes to wear so that you can cover your shameful nakedness, and salve to put on your eyes so that you can actually see the truth, so that you can see my kingdom, what's most important. Why such a strong rebuke of this church in the book of Revelation? Because materialism blinds us to our own spiritual poverty. Although they were materially wealthy, they were desperately poor in the things of God. And that's what's most important in this life. But it's so easy to get deceived and sucked into the culture that we live in. They were placing their trust in riches rather than the one who richly provides. It's easy to replace God. It's so easy to replace God with stuff as our security, our significance, our satisfaction. You want to know why? Because stuff promises the same stuff to us that God does. Have you ever thought of that? Stuff promises us the same things that God does. Significance, security, meaning. Man, look, people will look up to importance. People will look up to you if you have money. It'll become your identity, and you'll be important, and you'll have everything that you're looking for. False promises. It's a deception. It's a deception. The Bible tells us that every attempt to find life in anyone or anything other than God is vain. You're going to come up short. It's a dead-end street, so let's not fall for it again this Christmas season. Don't fall for it. Here's number 2. Materialism blinds us to the curses of wealth. Wait, curses? There are curses that come along with wealth? Yes, here they are. Independence and self-sufficiency, which are deadly to faith. I'll throw pride in there too. Pride, independence, self-sufficiency. Hey, what do I need? Why do I need God? I'm a self-made man. I've got it all together. I've got everything I need. John Steinbeck, who was an American writer, he won the Nobel Prize for Literature. He wrote The Grapes of Wrath, East of Eden. He wrote a letter to a former U.S. ambassador to the UN at one point that was recorded in the 1960 edition of the Washington Post. Here's what Steinbeck said. He said, "If I wanted to destroy a nation, I would give it too much, and I would have it on its knees, miserable, greedy, sick." Again, this isn't a Christian guy. This is just an author. Right? How would I take a nation down? Give it too much. Get them focused on just greediness and more, accumulation, independence, self-sufficient, material prosperity. Listen to me. It can begin as God's blessing, but when we treat it as a substitute for God, it becomes a curse in our lives. It becomes a curse. See, He gives us everything for our enjoyment, but when we enjoy the gift over the giver, it becomes a curse. Hosea 13:6 reminds us, here's what he says, "But when you entered the good land," this is God talking to His people, "you became full and satisfied, and then you grew proud and you forgot me." You had everything you needed, and you forgot about me. And you forgot that I was the one that brought you there. I was the one who gave it to you because I love you. And I wanted to bless you, and I wanted you to use what I gave you to bless others. But you got it, you became satisfied, you turned your back on me, you forgot about me. You even started serving other gods. Why have faith in God when you have faith in yourself? Why trust God when you have all your bases covered? Why pray when you have everything under control? Why ask for your daily bread when you own the bakery? We pride ourselves on our financial independence, but where would we be without God, from whom every breath is a gift? Every single breath is a gift from Him. After His encounter with a rich young man in Mark chapter 10, Jesus looked around and He said to His disciples, "How hard it is for the rich to enter the kingdom of God." That young man turned away and walked away with his head down because he couldn't give it up. He couldn't even see, he couldn't understand how he could give up what was so precious to him to follow Jesus. Materialism blinds us to the curses of wealth, independence, and self-sufficiency. Here's number 3. Materialism brings us unhappiness and anxiety. That's what it brings into our lives. One writer said, materialism is the mother of anxiety. Now, we know what anxiety is. Let's define anxiety in case we forgot what that feels like. It's feelings of fear, dread, worry, and uneasiness caused by stress. You ever had those feelings? Yeah. It can cause physical changes like sweating, increased blood pressure, and a rapid heartbeat. It can make you feel restless and tense, unable to sleep. Anxiety can interfere with daily activities and may lead to more serious complications like depression or substance abuse. How many of you would agree that financial stress is absolutely and completely no fun at all? that it brings these feelings into our heart and life, these feelings of dread. What have I done? I'm in too deep. I have never, ever heard a single person say, "You know what, my debt helps me feel so much peace. I am so thankful for all of my high interest credit cards. So thankful. I feel so close to God every time I see how much I'm paying in interest. When I pay that minimum payment and it just keeps getting higher and higher, I'm so thankful." I've never heard anyone ever in the history, as Jerry would say, ever in the history of man say that. But what I have heard over and over and over again is, you know what? It makes me feel stressed out. I worry about it all the time. Feelings of dread and anxiety, and I can't sleep some nights. And me and my spouse, we have fights about money. This isn't helping us. I'd give anything to be able to go back and not end up in a place that I am right now. That's what I have heard. Listen to Ecclesiastes 4:6. The writer says, better one handful with tranquility than two handfuls with toil and chasing after the wind. How much is your peace worth? Right, but we just get caught up in the culture, don't we? In other words, better is a car that's paid off than a brand new one with really big payments that stress you out. Better is a smaller house than fighting over the payments of a really, really big one. Better is a humble Christmas with friends and family than going into more debt to buy things that we don't need or even want. Don't fall for it this Christmas. Number 4, what does materialism do to us? It ends in ultimate futility. The book of Ecclesiastes exposes this, right? Better than any other book in the Bible. The most really ever written, an expose of materialism. Solomon recounts all of his attempts, the wisest, richest, wisest man in the world, of how his attempts to find meaning in the material and the physical, right? That's what materialism is. I'm going to find meaning not outside of spiritual values, in the material and the physical. He looked for it everywhere. Laughter, wine, building houses, planting vineyards, making money, amassing wealth, chasing women and pleasure. He did it all. He tells us the philosophy that he lived by in Ecclesiastes 2:10. He says, I denied myself nothing my eyes desired. I refused my heart no pleasure. That was his philosophy of life. Did it all, had it all, did it all, experienced it all. But listen to what he says in the very next verse, 2:11. Yet when I surveyed all that my hands had done and what I had toiled to achieve, everything was meaningless. A chasing after the wind. Nothing was gained under the sun. I never found what I was looking for. Now, I can hear some of you, well, that's what the Bible says. So it has to say that, right? Because that's the Bible. So let me give you another example of someone who was not a Christian at the time. Actually, this man converted to Christianity this year. It's amazing. Like, I can't believe if you read this guy's journey to Christianity. His name's Russell Brand. I actually shared this several years ago. He wrote a letter to himself, a note to self, back in 2014, okay? He was, let me tell you, this guy was as far from Christianity and faith and Jesus as you could possibly be, all right, at this time of his life. He's an actor, comedian, podcaster. Here's his letter to himself. Hello, young man. We've not spoken for a while, but I've necessarily buried you beneath fathomless strata of bravado and glamour. It will be good to have a chat, though, because I know that you're lonely, sad, and that you think too much. In fact, you do a lot of things too much. Drugs, porn, booze, sex, fame, money, other people's approval are all going to be prized and pursued over the coming years. And it falls to me to tell you that none of that stuff is going to help with the loneliness, thinking, or the sadness. Now, I'm not going to tell you to not take drugs. Now, I am telling you that. This is Russell Brand, okay? I'm not going to tell you to not take drugs or drink or go crazy chasing girls and fame. You hate being told what to do. It's going to take you to some dark places. And you're going to meet some desperate people. In all those places, you're going to see the same sadness and feel the same loneliness. Do it all. Go nuts. You're going to do it anyway. Just know that it can't make you happy. In fact, no externally acquired thing can help you. Just to take some of the pressure off, let me tell you, you're going to do some amazing things that are going to blow your mind. You're going to get rich and famous and travel the world, but I know for a fact that what you already suspect, none of this stuff is the answer. That's Russell Brand in 2014. None of this stuff is the answer. I love this summary. Most people chase their mirages with money, but they run out of money before they run out of mirages. Let that kind of sink in, because that's a strong statement. So, what do? Because we run out of money before we run out of mirages, so we still believe the lie that if I only had more money, more stuff, then I'd be happy. Then I'd if I only, then I'd finally be happy. Don't listen to Solomon, even listen to Russell Brand, who converted to Christianity this year. Don't fall for it. Don't fall for the lie. Here's number 5. Materialism distracts us from our central purpose. Isn't that a big one? Materialism distracts us from our central purpose, the kingdom, the mission. Think about your life. Here's what I want, a little exercise. Think about your life and ask yourself, what truly matters? What really matters? When you talk to someone who has just a few months to live, what does that become? What really matters? Right? Doesn't that have just an amazing effect on us? The folks that I've been around that have been given just a few months to live, all of a sudden, the meaning of life and what's most important, what really matters, becomes crystal clear. Just imagine that you have limited time left to live. What would you say? What really matters? I read one survey. Here's what people said. Their relationship with God, their spiritual life, their marriage, their relationship with their kids, their friends, their health. You know what no one in that survey said? Not a single person. What was really, really important was how much money they had in the bank. Not a single person said that in that survey. Nobody said their leather sofa. Nobody said their countertops. Nobody said their Instagram followers. When you define what really matters, what you'll often recognize is so much of our lives is spent pursuing things that really don't even make that list. We just get suckered in, don't we? Because we look at the culture, everybody else is doing it, and we just get drawn in. We get drawn in and we start pursuing those things ourselves. Like the circus plate spinner running frantically from one plate to the next, spinning each one again before it can fall and crash. That's what a lot of our lives look like. Centered around chasing possessions, concerns, activities that demand our constant attention and draw attention away from what God has called us to be and do. Right? We lose sight of what's the kingdom and his mission and the word of God. It gets choked out by the things of this world, the deceitfulness of riches, and we become unfruitful. I'm telling you, it's a trap. Jesus warns us in Luke 12:15, be on your guard. That means always be vigilant, be ready, be on your guard against greed in any shape or form, for a man's real life in no way depends on the number of his possessions. Don't store up treasure here. Store up treasure in heaven, where it's going to last for eternity. Where moth doesn't get to it, where rust doesn't get, where thieves don't break in and steal it, where we don't have to worry about it and protect it to try to make more of it so that we can find significance and security. Don't be deceived. Don't get distracted. I read the story this week. After striking a large deposit of gold, Two miners in the Klondike gold rush. This was, I didn't know about this. It was back in the late 1800s up in the Yukon Territory, up in Alaska. Two miners in the Klondike gold rush were so excited about unearthing more and more gold each day that they neglected to store up provisions for the winter. We're just, all they're doing is going after that gold. Then came the first blizzard. Nearly frozen, one of the miners scribbled a note explaining their foolishness. Then he lay down to die, having come to his senses too late. Months later, a prospecting party discovered the note and the miners' frozen bodies lying on top of a huge pile of gold. Dead bodies on a huge pile of gold. The gold that seemed such a blessing proved to be a deadly curse. They lost everything, even their lives. So be on your guard, Jesus says. Evaluate yourself constantly. Constantly. We're stepping back. We're being honest with ourselves. We're evaluating where we are, the state of our heart and our mind. So if this is so dangerous, if materialism is so dangerous, how do we break free from material in our lives? I want to give us just a few tips as we're wrapping up today. Number one, we got to resist comparing. There's a big one for us. And we've said this several times over the last years, right? Why is comparing so dangerous? Because it steals our joy. It's one of the Grinches that steals our joy. That's what comparison does. Have you ever been having a perfectly good day and then you see someone on social media having a better day than you, and then all of a sudden you feel like your life's just terrible, right? And before that, I was having a great day until I started scrolling on Instagram and I see, isn't that your third vacation this year, right? Like, how can y'all afford the Bahamas, right? How are y'all doing this? Or you're on another cruise, or my gosh, look at how nice your house looks. It's so beautifully decorated. And, I wish I could do that. Research has shown that people who constantly compare themselves to others are more likely to suffer from depression and lower self-esteem. So what do? When we're depressed, when we're sad, we self-medicate with a little retail therapy, don't we? This will make me feel better. This will make temporarily, I can fill the void temporarily. I can get that thrill, that little rush, make me feel better temporarily. And it all started when I was comparing. I was happy. I was content up until I started comparing. Comparison takes what is perfectly good and it makes it less than. You've got a nice place, you've got nice things, but then you start comparing it, your kids, your situation in life, and it becomes the death of contentment. Makes us resentful. We resent God's goodness in others' lives and end up ignoring his blessing in our own lives. So stop comparing and start practicing contentment. That's number two. We got to start practicing contentment. Isn't that a hard one? If we just have our daily bread and the clothes we need, can we be content with that? Paul writes in Philippians 4:11 through 13, "For I have learned to be content whatever the circumstances." You see that, whatever the circumstances? I know what it is to be in need. I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I want us to notice today that contentment doesn't come naturally to us. We have to learn it. Do you see how many times Paul said? Twice he said, I had to learn contentment. I had to learn to be content. By going through the circumstances. He learned it by going through it. By having a lot, by having a little, by having it all by the world's standards, respect, position, wealth, and having nothing. Even as Paul's writing this letter, he is in chains in a prison cell, but he's still content. How can he be content in that situation? In any and every situation, he had learned the secret. Well, what's the secret? Let's continue, verse 13. Paul writes, I can do all this through him, through Christ, who gives me strength. There's the secret. I can do it, not in my own strength, but in Christ, through him who gives me strength. In Christ alone. He created us for a personal relationship with himself. He's the source of life and meaning and satisfaction. And that means that nothing we try to substitute for Jesus in this life is ever going to satisfy us. You can't have enough money. You can't have enough fame or success. You can't have enough drugs or alcohol or sex. You can't have enough of anything to substitute for this relationship. This is the void that we're trying to fill, this God-sized void that only he can fill as we're in relationship with him. Think about it. If all these things that we're seeking after from the world's well, if they satisfied, then why are we still searching? Why are we still searching? If you're looking for happiness, contentment in anything besides Jesus, we're always going to come up short. You can get all the likes you want, all the approval from people you want, all the material things, but until you experience the goodness of Christ, you're going to be dissatisfied. You're going to need more and want more. Jesus is inviting you today to find what you're looking for in him. You want to fight materialism? Here's a big one. We got to give more. We gotta open up our hearts and our wallets and our homes and just give more. I love how Rick Warren says it. Every time you give, you break the grip of materialism in your life because giving is the opposite of materialism. Materialism is all about what you get. To break its grip on us, we need to do the exact opposite. Give, give, give. That's how you do it. That's how you break the grip. That first Christmas, what did the Father do? He gave us his one and only Son. He didn't show up and give us material things. That's not the answer for the world's problems. He didn't give us more stuff. He gave us himself. And so we follow his example. We follow God's example. We love, we serve, we seek first the kingdom of God. We make disciples. Find a worthy cause and invest in it. Find a need and meet it. Find a hurt and heal it. Give more of yourself, your time, your energy, your resources, your presence to others. Don't show up with a present. Give them your presence. That's what people need, a listening ear, a loving ear, a helping hand to others. Invest in the kingdom. When you do that, your heart grows bigger and you grow spiritually. If you need your heart, you remember the Grinch, his heart grew 2 sizes that day. If you want your heart to grow bigger and for you to grow spiritually, give. You got to give more. If it's got a grip in your life, give it away. That's how you release yourself, find peace and freedom. Finally, we got to refocus on things that really matter. Refocus on those things that really matter. Colossians 3:2 says, set your mind on things above, not on earthly things. We got to look at life from God's viewpoint. Realize that all of our possessions are temporary. Our stuff isn't bad. It just doesn't last. That's what we're talking about today. It doesn't last, and it can distract us from what's most important. So let's focus on what's going to last forever. One of these days, we're all going to stand before the Lord. And the danger we face is that we're going to hear the Lord say, you fool. You spent your life building a fortune, but you were not generous toward the Lord or his people. That's what he tells the guy in Luke chapter 12, right? He had so much and he built bigger barns to store all that he had, but then he died that very night. But you fool. You didn't think far enough ahead. You didn't think far enough ahead. You got to be rich towards God and others. The Lord is not going to ask how much money we had at the end of our life. And he's not going to ask what rate of return we got from our mutual fund investments. That's not what he's going to ask. But he will ask, what did you do with what I gave you? I blessed you. to be a blessing to others, to invest it in my kingdom. What'd you do with what I gave you? Did you use it all for your own enjoyment, or did you use your money for the sake of my kingdom? What we keep for ourselves, we eventually lose, but what we give away, we gain eternally. We find it waiting for us on the other side. Dr. James Dobson, he's 88 years old. I looked it up. I didn't even know if he was still alive. He's 88 years old, and here's what he said. He said, I have concluded that the accumulation of wealth, even if I could achieve it, is an insufficient reason for living. When I reach the end of my days, a moment or two from now, so he realizes he's getting close to the end, I must look backwards on something more meaningful than the pursuit of houses and lands and machines and stocks and bonds. I will consider my earthly existence to have been wasted unless I can recall a loving family, consistent investment in the lives of people, and an earnest attempt to serve the God who made me. Whew, now there's some wisdom. There's some wisdom from an 88-year-old man who has served Christ his whole life. Please understand, your life is too valuable, your calling is too great, your God is too good to waste your life on meaningless stuff. You're not put on earth to accumulate stuff for yourself. You were put on earth to make a difference in the lives of other people. So as we close today, I want you to hear me. Today's message is not a call to stop giving gifts, all right? I'm not up here trashing Christmas and gift giving. Here's what it is. It's a call to stop spending money on gifts we won't remember in less than a year, right? It's a call to step back and evaluate the grip potentially that materialism might have in our lives. It's about asking questions like, why do I want to buy this? Have we ever paused long enough to ask that? Why? Really, why do I want to buy this? Can I afford to spend this amount? I know we don't ask that question. How many presents do we actually need? What did we do with the presents from last year? Why do we think we need to spend so much to show someone we love them? Did Jesus really want us to go into debt to celebrate his birthday? What is it that we are treasuring? Because Jesus says where your treasure is, that's where your heart is. So what is it that you're treasuring? Jesus is saying to each of us, we have a choice. Will my lifestyle be determined by him, by Christ? Or will my lifestyle be determined by the culture? Let me pray for you today.